Donna, we're going to talk about something that all of us sometimes we could struggle with, but all of us need communication.
That's right. Some of us think we're communicating when we're not, right?
No, not at all. And this is coming from someone who thought they were a great communicator, and it was like, nope, not even close. So one thing I want to talk about is this one I fall for a lot. Something I've taught was that it's usually the speaker's problem if the communication isn't right. And what I mean by that, let's say for instance, is recently I spoke to someone and they was like, well, I didn't get what you were saying, so I didn't even bother asking. And I was like, oh no, forgive me. And it's like, yeah, exactly. I was like, oh no, forgive me. It's not your fault. She's like, no, I just didn't understand. I said, no, if you didn't understand, then it's not your fault. It was me who relayed the message without communicating completely what was going on in here and me relaying it out toward or to you. So a lot of times, as you know, is that we don't say everything we feel. We kind of filter it before it comes out of our mouth or before we kind of type it out. So have you experienced that either before or recently?
Yes. But the thing is, let me add on to what you said, because you may not have completed. I mean, 'cause we have a full thought in our brain, and what comes out of our mouth sometimes fragments out. I've done that numerous times. However, the person you were communicating to could communicate back. I didn't understand that. And can you explain it in a different way? Or I didn't understand that because.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It could have communicated and say, hey, where are we going with this? What's
It's a
happening?
two-way street. It's a two-way street communication.
Yeah. So one thing I've learned is well, we both know this is body language is about 55%, right? So yeah, it's like I really feel like being here.
Exactly.
I feel like being what? No. It's like that body language. So you know when they say if looks could kill.
The mom look. Have you ever had the mom look?
Yes.
And kid in a grocery store gets that from their mom, and
So it's safe to say that we have in this world a lot of us fail to communicate properly or we don't know how to communicate well. Would you agree?
yeah, a lot, yeah. A good majority. I'm thinking because a lot of people do come across and communicate well, but not everybody.
Yeah.
And the tone of your voice, how you're delivering the message, whether you're a little snarky with it, whether you have criticism wrapped up in it, it just doesn't always get your message across.
Yeah. And then, like you said, the tonality, we're talking about a body language, we're talking about the words is only a small percentage of what we say that
Right.
is actual communication, right? So a lot of us think just because we speak certain things, we're communicating well. It's like, no, there's other parts of us that are going to share that tonality. Because if I say, I'm so happy right now, it's not very convincing. It's you know, in a relationship, it was like, what do you want from here? I don't want anything. I'm fine. Wait, what? No, what do you want? Because whenever the food arrives here, don't intend to eat my food. What do you want? Right? And like you said, those looks, can you imagine when you talk to someone and their face goes, and when they say,
Right.
well, what's wrong? Nothing. It's like your face just told me everything what I said before was wrong, right?
Or you get the glazed look, like, what? I mean, I'm listening, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. So going into communication, let's talk about if I think relationships. I'm gonna put my hand down so they're like,
Like, what? As soon as you said relationships, you cross your arms like.
yeah, there's something there. There's something there. Okay, so let's talk about relationships. Coming from a relationship coach, let's talk about in intimate relationships or just personal relationships, like familiar relationships, because it's any person or anything, there's some sort of relationship, right? So let's
Yeah.
talk about a intimate relationship real quick. What is one of the biggest things that make relationships fail?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, the biggest thing, there's a lot of big things that will make relationships fail. But when you don't communicate
Yeah.
and you're not open and honest in your relationship, and I'm talking about like you're saying intimate, and I'm talking an intimate relationship, the time to communicate an issue or a concern or a problem is not in the throes of anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's when you have to feel safe to be vulnerable enough to talk prior or another time or later on down the road. Like, last week when we did XYZ, it would be so much better if we did it this way, or we tried this, communicate with your partner. And that makes a huge difference, because when you feel safe without being attacked, like if you're like in the midst of something and you're like, stop that sucks, it's going to cause a fight.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest issues when it comes down to that is that you have to know what you want. You have to know your emotions.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what's going on inside, how do you convey that to someone? So you're talking about being honest about sharing. It's like, hey, I want to communicate this with you. So in my previous relationship, I'm going to start my previous relationship. I'm not going to start naming my last relationship anymore, because it's like there's a big distance now. In my previous relationship, what would happen was, just like you said, let's say, for instance, I would go to her and just start spewing out, just, this is how I feel, this is going on, blah, blah, blah. And she just got off of work. It's like that time gap, it's her mind might be just shut down completely. She just had a not say a bad day, but a full stressful day of work. And I'm just like, let me throw some more gasoline on top of that fire that you have. And then it causes friction in between. So then what she actually taught me was, hey, do you have a moment to take on some energy for me to share with how I'm feeling with you, to open the floor? And then if she says yes, like you said, don't do this in the spur of the moment. You left the dishes in the sink. No, don't do that. Don't do it at the moment where you just feel like you're hot-headed, you're tempered. Is like, can I set this up in a position to where you are willing to actually openly listen to me?
Right.
So
Yeah. That's part of communication, is listening as well. But there's a and getting back into the sensitive vulnerability of a relationship is being vulnerable enough to ask. Like, a lot of people hold in what they want to say because they're either afraid of how someone's going to respond, or they're just scared to share their emotions. They don't want to be vulnerable, so they don't say it. And then eventually there's either resentment or looking elsewhere to find what you're looking for.
yeah,
When I think you have to know that you guys are in alignment, any type of relationship, where that you can feel safe to talk about whatever. And just as you said, feel safe enough to say too, if someone comes in and wants to spew their day on you, feel safe enough to say, you know what, it's not a good time right now. Can you just give me a little bit of time and we'll talk about it later? Or maybe let's talk about it after dinner or something like that. Feel safe to say that, so that your partner's not going to say, I need to talk to you now. This is it.
yeah. And that tonality alone that you just did a while ago, it says red flag. Because you ever heard, or I'm sure you've heard this, we need to talk.
Oh yeah, we need to talk.
Don't get one of those in the middle of the day at work. A text message or a phone call says, we need to talk. You're like, my whole day after that is just ruined.
That's right.
Your mind is like, well, what's going on? What's wrong? What's happening? And
Yeah.
wherever you're at presently, like, you can't focus on your work. You can't focus on anything. It's like, what's about to happen? What do I need to prepare myself for? Because I don't want to say little mind, but a part of us are going to say, what do I need to prepare myself for this conversation?
That's right.
And I want to go back to what you said about the filter, as of like, it could be, you don't want to be vulnerable. It could be the fact that you want to hurt the person's feelings. I think it's also, sometimes you've been programmed not to say what you truly feel because no one was listening and said, oh, don't. For me as a young person, it's like, oh, be a boy, suck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, just stop. Don't cry about it. And it's like, okay, so now you bottle it all in. Now, when you're expressing to someone, you don't know how to filter what's going on. It's literally, you don't have the capabilities to express how you feel, because that other person is going to be like, if they receive it well, because it wasn't received well when you was a child.
Right.
So.
And you know what? To kind of fall back on another episode that we had, when you talk about how when you talk to somebody, you get to know them, like on your dating process, that when you're dating, that you're 12 steps ahead. Like, it's date number 6 when most people are like, oh, what's your sign? What's this? What's that? In that dating time is when you talk about the stuff that, so that you know that you're safe to talk about this, so that you understand that this person gets me and may not agree, but knows where I'm coming from and knows that, you know what, if I get angry, I will walk away, but I'm not walking away to ignore you. I am walking away because I just need to gather my thoughts.
Well, you know what's troubling with that entire process though? A lot of people have never had a healthy relationship to know how to process to start a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
That just when you said that, I'm like, a lot of people have never been in a position to know what a healthy relationship. So whenever it looks like someone's like, hey, let's talk about these deep things. Let's talk about the real things. They're like, whoa, slow down now. Now, don't get me wrong. If someone's like, let's get married tomorrow, run.
Well,
Run. Yeah, slow down. But if someone's really attempting to figure out what's true to you, and they're willing to share, not just to someone that's just asking over and over and over, but they're also sharing their truth. Some people don't realize what a healthy beginning looks like.
but you know what? You don't even have to have had a healthy relationship to start a healthy relationship. So sometimes when that happens, and if you're thinking like, whoa, these are really intense questions, embrace them and learn from them and say, okay, all right, this doesn't feel so bad. It may feel a little scary, but it's not so bad. And communicate. It's all about that. And that way down the road, you don't have to encounter issues that are not really, I mean, could have been resolved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So one of the things that I would suggest when it comes down to communicating, especially if it's like bothering you, is writing it down. So this way you can write it down and take a look at it, like, okay, is this really bothering me? Because a lot of the problems that they're created in our mind, right?
Mhm.
So if we write it down and we look and say, okay, this is what I want to express, so I can express it in such a way for that other person to understand me, just like the 5 love languages. A lot of people don't realize those are love languages. So for you, let's say for instance, yours is physical touch and you have a partner who has words of affirmation and you're always like going behind them, put your hand on their shoulder or something like that. Yeah, right. It's like, oh yeah. And they're like, I'm not feeling it until you say, you know, you did a wonderful job at cooking for the day. And then to their mind, they're like, she noticed me.
Yes.
She noticed me. That tap on the shoulder, it could be just be like you're just running by thinking you might be getting love from it, but that person's not perceiving that love. So just alone in that is communication.
Yes.
This is gonna be
Yeah.
part 1.
Right. And you know, I mean, I heard this and I don't know really who said it, but I love it. And it's just because you love me doesn't mean I feel loved by you.
Mm,
And that ties into the love languages.
yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because
Yeah.
like I said, it's two-way street. When we started this, it's two-way street. And this way, when you learn your partner's love language, although it may not be yours, you're
Yeah.
still gonna want to provide for. You're still gonna want to. Wait, hold on. If you're in a healthy relationship and you love that person, you're gonna want to feed into their love language. Because
Yeah.
if it's truly just for you, then you're just focused on receiving. You're not so focused on receiving and giving, and that comes with a balance. And how do you find it out? Communication.
Communication. That's right. That's right. It's so important.
That's the only way for it. So, can you can a relationship survive without healthy communication? Forgive me. Can a healthy relationship survive without healthy
And
communication?
I don't even think any relationship can survive without healthy communication. Eventually it'll break up because you're not seeing, hearing, understanding each other.
Yeah.
You know, like, and someone can be a real, excuse me, but ass about things like, okay, physical touch. Does that mean that they should walk by and slap you on the ass like, hey,
Just
you know,
random, like yeah, no.
she knows I love her. I just gave her a tap on the bottom. It's like, no, 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 you know. So no, I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think without communication, because with communication becomes understanding, becomes intimacy, which brings you closer. I think it's a temporary fix. I mean, it's a temporary relationship.
Yeah. And only, but then there are those relationships. Let's say, for instance, if parents have children involved and their communication it sucks. But the issue now is now you're staying because of the kids.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know my saying on that kids would rather be from a broken home than to live in a broken home, because what you're doing is you're teaching the kids to be like that. Or this is the norm. This is what a relationship is. We fight.
Yeah, yeah.
We call each other names, you know?
Yeah, I recently had someone who told me that they're okay with that because that's what they grew up with. I'm like, oh man, that's I can't communicate that, and I can't tell you any different because that's what you feel. But yeah, no, I agree. Communication can be challenging to have a healthy relationship or any relationship without
Any.
good or attempting to be like improve your communication in a relationship. Because if you don't do that, whew, yeah, it's not going to be a good
Well,
relationship.
it's an employment situation. I mean, if you have done, you fill out evaluations or whatever on yourself, you go through reviews.
Yeah,
If you don't say your piece
yeah.
and your supervisor or whoever, your manager doesn't promote you or give you any, I mean, like, are you gonna sit there just saying, well, didn't they know that I did this, this, and this?
Mm,
You
there
gotta be your own best friend. You gotta talk about what you did.
Yeah, yeah. Now there's another one. There's perspective when it comes down to communication, and I shared this so briefly with you a while ago. So someone had plans. They had plans of something they're putting together, and there's a group of people, and the person that had the plans who was directing the communication is the only one that can see the picture. It's the only one that can see the picture. The only one that can see what instructions go for what, and they're saying put that with that with this with that, and everyone's looking like. It's like, wait, what? And he's like, it's common sense. Do it this way, do it that way, do it this way. And it's like, you're the only one that can see the big picture. You're expressing how you can see it without expressing it correctly to the people who are doing the work. If you're the navigator, then you want to express it in such a way to where they understand. And this is where it blows my mind. My gosh, Donna, this is why they tell us to go where people are with our coaching, right? Recently I went to a cafe and a gentleman been on their journey for 30 plus years. They've been on their journey for 30 plus years and sat down giving me a lot of information, and it was just spewing an abundance of information. And I'm like, uh-huh. Fortunately, I caught some of the things, but when he told me, when he asked a question, I'm like, no, I never heard of that. No, I don't know this. It's because I want to be honest and make sure it's like, hey, if you're gonna, it's giving information. But when I tell you afterwards, just like that was a lot that was just like whoosh. And it helped to me. You know why? Because that's what I once did with people. So it's best to slow down and go to where the people are of who you're communicating with. And why I say this is because the same situation with whether it's a diagram, whether the same situation you're speaking with somebody, find out where they are so you can learn to art. This is why I say it's a speaker's problem. Learn to articulate in such a way to where it lands where that person can pick it up. Because if I don't want to go vibration, but if I'm speaking here in my mind, it seems rational, it seems clear, it seems like, hey, this is how I'm saying it to you. And this person's here, and maybe we're working on the same project. They're new to the project. I've been on the project for 5 years, and I'm attempting to get you here within 30 seconds. It's not going to work.
No.
It's really not going to work. So it's like feeding those breadcrumbs, the little small breadcrumbs of seeds.
Well, and getting back to that picture that you'd said, I mean, what would have been a wise thing, just like as in a relationship, before you, like on date one, you talk about things so that when you get into the heat of the moment, you understand each other. The diagram, bring your team together and say, this is what we're doing today.
Yeah.
I will let you know how we're going to follow along the way, but this is our end goal, so that at least everybody knows the goal they're working towards.
Yes.
You communicate it.
And this is why vision, like most companies, a lot of people lose their employees because the employees are on a ship that has no vision.
Yeah.
So if you communicate it with everyone, just like in a relationship, where are we going? What's the intention behind this? Because if you jump in a relationship and someone doesn't want kids, one person does want kids, and you didn't communicate that at the beginning, you're both in trouble. Like you're truly in trouble. If you have no idea what your partner wants or any relationship that you're moving toward, it doesn't have to be intimate, it could be even familiar status. It could be the fact that especially when the people that's close to you, your family and friends, sometimes assuming gets put in for communication.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not going to send this person this invite, or when I go to the store, I'm not going to pick them up something because they wouldn't like this anyway. I've known them all my life. It's like, okay. Then they get home, or you get to, you find out, it's like, everybody went where and no one told me? Or you went to I don't know, local foods and got a sandwich and you didn't bring me back something? Well, I didn't think you would like it. Your
Yeah, we
communication.
wouldn't eat that. You don't eat sandwiches.
Oh no, it's a vegan sandwich. I would eat that. Yeah,
No, but I'm saying that's what they say.
oh yeah.
We know you wouldn't like that. We figured you wouldn't like it. So, there's that.
Yeah. So the communication goes down to assumption rather than actually communicating. So we have a filter or a veil on our eyes that tells us that this is the perspective part we're talking about. That tells us that person wouldn't like this because in my filter, in my category or my check boxes from the past that I remember, they don't like pickles. Remove the pickles, fool. So it's like truly, if we remove the perspective and give everyone the ability to be a person, right?
Yeah.
And we ask questions, because that's the best way to find out. Communication is about questions. And a lot of people don't realize this. Ask yourself those questions.
Well, and yeah, and be a human again. I mean, stop doing everything via technology. Sometimes you need to call somebody or talk to somebody face to face instead of sending a text or sending an email, simply because there's no voice inflection in an email. You could read the same words. You could say the same words 3 different ways. You could be angry, sad, or happy about it. You could say the same thing. So sometimes it's important to really reach out or see somebody face to face. I mean, there's something about, and as you said, body language, eyes, the eyes are the mirror to the soul. You can see so much when you look at somebody's eyes. So yeah.
There's another thing though with that. There's trouble with that when you're talking about get back to being human. That sounds so awful. It sounds so awful when you say get back to being human, because you could walk in Walmart today and the sole purpose of the greeter is to look in your eyes and greet you. Today, it's not that. You'll have people who are looking down because they don't know how to communicate, or they're shy, they're maybe been isolated, and they don't communicate because this is the communication now. So actual human experiencing with one another, getting back to being human is probably one of our biggest challenges we have today.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree to that one.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about raising your voice whenever you're communicating? Let's say, for instance, for you to get your perspective across to the other person.
I mean, what's your intention? You're having a fight. A lot of people raise their voice. You don't always need to do that, but I mean, that's where people's intention would be like, you're not listening to me, so I'm going to say it louder, that kind of thing. I think you can communicate in a constructive way without raising your voice. Who are you communicating with?
Yeah.
And oftentimes if someone's yelling at you, if you don't yell back, if you don't raise your voice back, you can de-escalate a situation. Now, that takes a lot of self-control, but
it does. It took some time for me to learn that one. Yeah, it does. But one thing you do is I think it said this with a narcissist as well. So we'll go to communication. A narcissist will basically find the points of view to where they did something good and then point out like the negative, make it seem like it's you that's causing me problems. You're the one that's pointing it out to me. So when that happens, it says the person who's listening, just stop and stare at them. Not like just no, stop, stare at them and ask them, well, why do you feel that way? Because now it has to go outside of what they are attempting to say that what was happening, to go back and research it, look in their brain again, like, okay, this is that, this, that. So they had to go actually find out the emotional part of it. But like you said, the other day I saw somebody in a store because their stuff was wrong, yelling at the person behind the counter and getting louder and say, well, look, this is what it is. This is what's going on. You just remove this. I'm just gonna eat this, but I just want you to know. And it's like, why are you getting louder and louder with the person? Not just, well, one, you don't get loud anybody that's serving your food. Don't ever do that. But they won't understand you, or let's say they will understand you, but it'd be more challenging for them to get your order right if you slow down and give them the information in such a way to where they could receive it more in a calm state. Because if they're anxious, if they're feeling defensive, or they're feeling, how would you say this?
Well, you just up their stress level and gave them some anxiety about it.
Yeah. It's like, why do you think they're going to do any better?
Right,
But a
right.
lot of people, they raise their voice in order to get their point across. It's like, you don't have to do that. But like you
Well,
said,
it's also an ego thing. Wouldn't you agree that sometimes like, oh, well, I can just yell at this person or, push them around. It's some control. A lot of that comes into play as well. But if you're raising your voice to somebody, I mean, first of all, make sure, I mean, I'm not even saying that's right. Don't make sure. Why? I mean, is the person that you're addressing the problem? I mean, if someone served you the wrong sandwich, it's somebody out in the back and it get to the person in front who checked you out, you
yeah,
know, um, it's not, it's not good to yell at them.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna yell at anybody, but you can explain it to them. I realize it's not your fault, but this is wrong. Can you help me out here?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm picking my stuff up now because I had to have like a diagram real quick. Here we go. Let's say, for instance, the person who is yelling. Let's say the person, any relationship. This could be at a grocery store. This could be a partner relationship. This could be whatever, right? Business relationship. This person here is yelling at the person instead of communicating in such a way that they want to say it, right? So let's say, for instance, this is at a grocery store again or wherever. This person's yelling at this person. It's not this person's fault. Like I said, it might be someone in the kitchen. And let's say, just say, for instance, it may have been this person. They did something wrong. It's
Right.
really this person's fault. Why? Because they can't control their emotions. Yeah, they can't. I'm thinking like it's a steam pot, like it fills up. They can't control their emotions, and they allow their emotions to lash out something outside of themselves because, oh, you had tomatoes on your stuff. No one deserves to be yelled at for tomatoes on your stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. If you said it 100 times because you're allergic and you would die, that still doesn't mean like, hey, you made a mistake. There's something wrong here. So the person who's yelling, I don't care who it is. You're yelling, you're angry, it's your fault. I say that because you can't process your own emotions, and for you to take your anger out on somebody because of your stuff,
Right.
and that ego stuff you're talking about, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Maybe it comes down to the point of working on your emotions. I'm going to do this again. Your emotions, or go do some chakra healing. I'm going to say go do some chakra healing.
You know what's sad about the demonstration you just did is that this person is mad about the tomatoes, yelling at the little person there.
Mhm.
And in the world of business, the customer is always right. So it gives that big guy that doesn't like the tomatoes the power, in his mind, the right to yell.
Yeah.
I mean, if you said it in a nice way, you would have gotten reimbursed or a new sandwich anyway.
Yeah. The customer is right that the order was wrong. The customer
Right.
is wrong that he thought he was right for yelling at that person.
That's right.
No
That's
one
right.
deserves to be treated in such a way because of you can't handling your emotions.
However, communication, what is said and what is heard, people read the thing that says the customer is always right, and he thinks regardless,
Yeah.
I'm right.
It's just something about morals. I don't get it. It's just
Morals,
something.
values, no foundational stuff.
But yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that I'll say is writing it down so you can process your emotions, process how you feel, and then go to that person. Now, if your tomatoes are wrong, you're not gonna go write down how you feel. I'm talking about more in an intimate or a close relationship. Like, sir, you messed up here, and the tomatoes that you put on here, you put 3 extra ones when I told you I was allergic. No, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna go to. This is why, if you think about it, whenever they have like a intervention for people,
Yeah.
this is why the therapist says, hey, write down how you feel, write
That's
down
right.
what's causing you, because if you go in this, we go in this spurring out, oh, it's going to be a heated battle, it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong really quick. But if you stay to verbatim and saying, let me read my letter to this person, how I felt, it literally breaks out your true emotions. But for something, that ego that you talked about, when we just start talking, it's just going to start spewing out. Wait, remember that time you stole this and that from me, and you did this and you did that? It's like, wait, hold on, why are we going back there? You're bashing, not helping for them to see.
Right.
So
Well, I agree. That writing down is awesome. To write down your feelings, sit on them, and read it the next day. I'm a big advocate on that.
that's a big one though. Hold on, go back a little bit. You said read it the next day.
To yourself.
Okay, okay.
read it the next day.
Okay.
And then you kind of sort it out, and some things aren't even going to be relevant anymore. You're like, why was I angry about this? And like, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. And I had some hurt feelings, stuff going on, and I just typed it all up on the computer, just got it all out, everything. It was like 3, 4, 5 pages. It was long. Next day I read it and I'm like, this was a little harsh. Take that out. I didn't want to say it this way, reframe it. And then by the third day, maybe I wanted to confront and discuss, or maybe I didn't. And I either deleted it, or I would say, listen, I wrote something that I want you to listen to. Just sit, let me read it. You can take notes if you want to come back later, but just let me finish so that I don't go off track. And I would read it. And when it's amazing, the feel. And you read a message to somebody instead of them reading it, because again, when they read it, the tone in their head is they're angry and this is what I'm hearing, not coming out of my mouth.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of doing it. Instead of, so that is challenging, because if, let's say for instance, you sent a letter to someone, they could make up whatever tonality you're saying.
Yes.
So I think it's great. And I think it's great when you said take that day to revisit, because right now you're getting everything out. It's like, oh my gosh, you pissed me off, you did this, blah blah blah, right? And the next day, like you said, you could go in and cross out, that was too harsh, this is not going to land well for them to even understand what I'm attempting to say. And then you said by the third day, now you can say, hey, you know what, I want to share something with you. That is I think that is huge, the timing in between that you give yourself, because our emotions are high. And now it's like, let me settle into this, let the dust settle, and then let me determine whether or not this is the right thing that I feel true to myself to say. And for you to actually read it to them. So that's good.
To them is huge.
Yeah. And then here's the part that I believe I mentioned to you in my next relationship, what my intention is to do is once a week, let's have a sit down and talk. Let's truly talk about things. If we go for a walk, we go to coffee or tea, and just literally sit down and talk about what's going on in a relationship. Because you have your life, you have your job, you have this, you have that. I have my career, I have whatever's going on over here, and we're bringing our worlds together. So in order for us to mesh our worlds together and have a great partnership, we are going to need to communicate well. So I think once a week, and then don't get me wrong, if you have something on your chest, don't wait till, don't be like, hey, I have a question, can you help me with something? Like, ask me then. Don't wait till we have our talk on Sundays. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to sit down and actually communicate with your partner. So this way you have an open and honest feeling with your partner. And if you feel more secure, because that's the person you're gonna be most vulnerable with. That is the person.
Yes, they need to be your safe place to fall.
Yes. So if you can't have that with your partner, then why? But why?
That's where the breakups come in. That's where, I mean, and this could be another one of our episodes, is that's where a lot of people say once a cheater, always a cheater. If someone strays in a relationship, I don't always agree to that. There are like serial cheaters, but then there are people that there was a breakdown in communication, and stuff happens where, you're seeking somewhere else for what you've missed, or the acknowledgement, or the not feeling criticized, or not feeling less than in a relationship. And when people say, I don't know, it just happened, they don't mean they were walking down the street, tripped and fell into somebody and they had sex. They mean it just happened where
it doesn't happen like that. It didn't just happen.
Somebody, and as they're talking to somebody, there's a connection, like somebody actually listened to me. Wow, somebody actually gave me attention. So then there's that emotional connection that leads into it. So they didn't plan it. And a lot of times, I have to say, sometimes, well, not a lot of times, sometimes in a relationship, when someone strays and they get caught, it is what is needed to come back and make for both parties realize where the break was, and let's fix this. So it can be fixed, but you got to work.
Yeah, but even with that being said, a lot of people can't see what they've done in their relationships. They don't.
But that's the work, right? You got to be honest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because let's say, for instance, relationship starts well, and I'm speaking with my hands. Relationship starts well. Yeah, male, female, male, whatever role, right? Let's say, for instance, you've been working for a long time, and this person has been there for you and everything, and now you're so caught up in working, things are picking up, and you're only focused on work. But this person that was there for you is like, hey, I'm feeling lonely. It's like, you're never here anymore. You're always gone. And if this person steps away, what did you do over here? It's like, you're not seeing it. You only seen they stepped away. But like you said, if they get caught, then they'll show like, oh, if the person's responsible for they'd say they're accountable for their actions, say, oh, I did lead you here. You were there for me at our very lowest point. And now that everything's working over here, I completely forgot about us. Oh,
Yes.
that happens when kids come involved too. That does happen. Like, you were in a relationship, like you two were a couple before a
Yeah.
child came involved. And sometimes one person in that relationship, they get caught up so much in the child, they forgot that you were in a relationship.
Right.
And you're wondering why this other person is not happy. So
They
yeah,
feel neglected. They feel all that. They feel all those feels. But even if you strayed and then you felt guilty about it and you came back and told your partner,
yeah, yeah,
not an immediate attack like you did this, we're done. Figure it out.
yeah.
Happened. Why? This person at least was honest enough that after they strayed, they came back to tell you because they love you enough. That's why I said don't blanket it. It's not a generalization. Everybody cheats. Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Trust is so hard to rebuild, but it can be done.
Yeah. And we're gonna talk a whole another thing about cheating. We're gonna talk another thing about communication. Because when you said the whole cheating thing, sometimes I look at it as this is a small part of this. Sometimes I look at it as we cheat ourselves by being in certain things that doesn't serve us. So we cheat on ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll leave that there because that's gonna be a big topic. But
Yeah.
let's call this one for today, because I think this is quite a bit. Now I don't want to be like that person that was sitting at the table just throwing a whole bunch of information at me. So everyone that's watching this, we thank you for watching this, and we will be talking about communication again. This is only part one because communication, it's for everything. And if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to talk about any other topics, feel free to let us know what you want us to cover, and we will do so. But until then, have a great one.